Hi, a very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this last session, I would say, before the Patent Exam 2022. I'm here to discuss time management strategies for paper 2, as well as how to answer the situational based questions in paper 2. Specifically, I'll be discussing the questions which are asked in the patent filing or drafting related activities, for which the video is uploaded on the YouTube channel already. We have tried to answer these questions in our physical classes that happened in Delhi over the last weekend. But since the Mumbai students and other students from Bangalore and other locations couldn't attend that particular session, so I'll be covering right here those answers to those questions, along with for sure the some strategies to how to manage the time in the exam, specifically in the context of paper two. Reason being, as we know, paper two is more theoretical, and we need uh, manage the time very effectively in the paper two. It's a very long paper at times. We have got 100 marks, wherein we have to attempt 8 to 10 questions, descriptive questions as such. So the time management is also very effective, because from day one I have been informing everyone that you just cannot skip any one question in the I would say exam paper two specifically. If you don't attempt the question, there is a very high possibility that you may not be in a position to crack the exam. So in that context, it is very essential that you need to attempt all the questions, and for that, time management is also important accordingly. So I'll be covering that part along with some tips how to manage the time in the exam as such. Of course, some of these things, as I discussed, were discussed already in the session that happened in Delhi recently, the physical session in Delhi recently. But still, there are a lot of other things which can be discussed here, and I thought to take this opportunity to one last time, I would say, discuss with all of you. So to start with, as I said, there are two agendas for this session. Time management for paper two is the first agenda and the important agenda. And beyond that, the agenda is also to answer the prosecution related, filing and prosecution related situational questions. To start with, what I have done is I have divided it into like alternate one question, one tip for time management basically. So to start with, the first step that I have is, and this is also what I discussed in, I would say, the my session that happened in Delhi recently. If the patent draft or the claims drafting is from your domain, attempt it first. It would not only boost your confidence, but also it would help you in terms of managing the time effectively, because you would require lesser time to attempt the question which is related to your domain basically. Now, what do you mean by your domain? While discussing the patent drafting or claim drafting, we have been discussing that, you can't skip the device or instrument related inventions and the composition related inventions. So basically, if you are comfortable with instrument related inventions, then if you have a invention which is for instrument or a device, then attempt it upfront. It would give you good marks first. If you are comfortable more with the composition related inventions, and if you have a question there for composition related invention, attempt that question. Beyond that, if you are, let's say, from the pharmaceuticals domain, and if you are fortunate, lucky enough to have a question from pharmaceutical domain, attempt it upfront. It would really help you in the exam all as such. If you are from mechanical engineering, attempt the mechanical, if at all it is there. remember that it may not be possible to get all all the questions from your domain as such. And there was this one question which was asked in the Delhi class, what about अगर कोई भी question हमारे domain का नहीं है तो. That's the reason I told either instrument or the composition related invention basically. So you choose your ones, the ones which you like. And as I said, these two are very essential or crucial as far as the drafting or patent agent exam paper 2 are concerned. So if the patent draft or claim drafting is from your domain, attempt it first. At the end of the session, I'll also tell you how to divide those 180 minutes actually on a average basically, considering the 2018 question paper that we had. So I have 2018 question paper in front with me, paper 2, and I'll let you know how to divide your time basically, which would should give you optimum marks. My intent here is to use score better in the paper too, so that you get optimum marks and you are in a position to crack the patent examination. Okay, so the first step that I told is, if the draft is from your domain, if you feel it is easy, attempt it first, because specifically the draft or claim has either 20 or 30 marks, which is a good chunk actually out of the 100 marks basically, right? So that's the first step. Beyond that, as I said, we'll discuss the situational based question. Just a disclaimer, all the questions are hypothetical. We have discussed it in the physical classes in Delhi recently. And of course, these are very raw questions actually, and I think this is the right time now, because almost each one of you have finished with the syllabus, as well as each one of you would have at least gone through everything at least once. That's what is expected. The question one that was there is, Shahrukh and Kajol are applicants and inventors for an invention which is related to an instrument for editing the songs. This patent is in a hearing stage in India. Ajay, Kajol's husband, suggests improvement in the instrument. Kajol discusses this with Shahrukh and they decide to file another patent for this improved editing instrument. Shahrukh and Kajol approach you for filing patent for this improved editing instrument. Kindly advise them about the course of action and the role of Ajay in this regard as well. So the simple answer to this, maybe you can also put it in the I would say, the chat box as well, YouTube chat box as well. The simple answer to this question is related to, the moment you read the word improvement, it should help you understand. It should help you understand that this question is related to patent of addition. What else need to be mentioned here? Okay, herein you need to mention that the patent of addition can be filed, the section number, the relevant forms basically, the fees as well that is required for filing of the patent of addition. You also need to inform Shahrukh and Kajol that the term of a patent of addition would be exactly equal to the term of the main invention. Yeah. Now, beyond that, there is a specific question. Advise them about the course of action and role of Ajay in this regard. So now, role of Ajay in this regard is as an inventor and not as an applicant, basically. So this is also what you need to specifically mention, because in case of patent of addition, the applicants remain same. So this you need to specifically mention as such, right? So the forms and other things which are required for patent of addition, that you need to specifically mention. Whenever you have situational based questions, therein advising kind of questions, therein you need to ensure that you are putting a form number, section number, the relevant fees, if possible, rules. I know rules. It is not easy to I would say remember all the rules. But my suggestion is, if you remember the rules, put it. If you don't remember, don't put it. Don't put anything wrong in the I would say the chat box actually, or the answer sheet basically. Don't put anything wrong in the answer sheet. That is going to I would say that is going to deduct some marks for sure. So if you write anything, and this also applies to paper one, wherein multiple answers are correct. In paper one, if multiple answers are correct, let us say there are three answers which are correct. If you write two correct, then probably you would get 2 marks. But if you write two correct and one wrong, then you won't get any mark at all. That may be the situation. You may get a 0 mark in that case. So similarly, herein as well, you need to ensure that you need to put that, I would say, section number, the term, the form, the fees as such, as well as the last thing that is mentioned, the role of a. He is an inventor basically. Okay, so this, and also when you draft an answer to this kind of question, you need to, when there is a situational based question, you have to advise, suggest, guide. In those kind of cases, try to make it in a formal letter format. So for example, to the applicants, Shahrukh and Kajol, subject, your query regarding the improved editing instrument for editing the songs basically. Dear sir, this refers to our discussion or your inquiry related to this. We would like to suggest you as follow. And at the end, put yours, and maybe don't. Okay, in exam, never put your name at all. You can put XYZ, ABC, any I would say hypothetical name, but anywhere in the answer sheet in the second paper, don't ever put your I would say the name as such. So that's the first question. Another tip that I have for time management, and this we discussed in detail again in the Delhi physical classes that we conducted over the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday when we conducted the class in Delhi. Therein, this thing was in detail discussed. While reading the invention, ensure that the key pointers are highlighted or ticked. What do you mean by that? Remember that what we did is we practiced. Of course, we have practiced at least 10 to 12 different inventions, reading actually. You must have observed that while reading the invention, at times we require 15 to 20 minutes just to read the invention. Forget about understanding, just to read the invention basically. And many a times you need to read the invention for the second time to understand it, or to draft the claims, or to draft the title or abstract or the detailed description, right? Now, therein it is very important, it is very important as such, that you are, while reading the invention, you are highlighting or you tick mark the let us say the component. If it's a composition, the ingredients of the composition. If it is a let's say the any instrument, then the part of that instrument or a device basically, component of that instrument or device basically. Third thing, for example, wherein the terms are used like such as, for example, etc., or types of, these terms specify you about the dependent claims answer. These terms specify you about the dependent claim answer. So you tick mark there only in your question paper, or underline whatever you feel like. But so that when you are reading it for the second time, you are in a position to understand where is your invention, what are the dependent claims, what are the components of your invention as well. This is going to help you a lot. Remember, out of 100 marks, 50 marks in 2018 question paper were included in these drafting of the spec as well as the drafting of the claims and title and abstract. So reducing your efforts while reading the invention is very important, and that's where I believe this step is going to help you. So while reading the invention and for the class, Yeah. Again, I've been repeating this in each of my class, which is for paper two. Attempt it. Don't leave blank. The format include so like in Delhi class, none of the students actually out of 15 students I would say could understand the invention how to draft, but everyone could get some marks for sure out of it because of the format in which we are drafting the title, because of the format like because of the format that we have been actually following it. So I got a question here from Apurva. The instruction booklet with the hall ticket clearly says that we are not supposed to highlight or write anything on question paper. It will lead to disqualification. Apurva, this would be just for 5 minutes. You can do it with a pencil basically, or put it in your answer sheet basically, at least the line number. Okay, and then you can erase it. I'm not saying to make it permanent, Apurva, but I would prefer, because see, reading that second time invention becomes really very critical. And Apurva, if you are from pharma and if you have an invention, let us say, which is from a devices industry or an instrument, therein it would help you a lot. For pharma, if you have the invention, you may remember what all is mentioned. But if you go beyond your domain, because remember, patent agent exam, Apurva, is just not for one kind of students. So like we have a lot of different streams which are actually covered in that. So ensure that so you can edit that or erase it after once you are done with that particular invention basically, right? Now, so that's my second tip. So this would reduce time with respect to reading of the specification. Remember that there are three things that are very important for the drafting related active. First is reading it, understanding it, and then I would say putting it in a claim format also. So while reading, ensure that you are reading it correctly. And I think we have tried this in our class as well, where repetitively, how to read, where to pinpoint what questions you should ask to yourself while reading any invention. That is also very important, right? Whether it's a product or a process, whether it's a composition or a device, instrument, first paragraph can give you, or first line itself can give you some marks related to title and abstract. This also we have already discussed actually, right? So ensure that your key pointers while reading, so the way to read it is very important, because that's how you would understand and that's how you would be in a position to put it in your language as such at the end of the day, in the answer sheet. So that's my tip number two for the time management. Now, Raj, yeah, Raj, a British citizen, and Simran, yes, I would say, die-hard DDLJ fan. That's the reason you're getting these kind of questions. These are hypothetical questions that I have seen. Raj, a British citizen, and Simran, an Indian citizen, meet during Europe tour and decide to collaborate on a project related to develop concrete material which can be long lasting and useful for European and Indian market. They want to file the patent in India and Europe. They approach you, provide advice to Raj and Simran about the filing of the patent in India and Europe and the steps involved therein. First important thing herein, there are collaborators, two applicants as well as two inventors as such. There are two applicants and there are two inventors as well. Now, what are the ways to file application in India and Europe? So, so we know the two routes that are available is one is through the PCT or the second one is through the convention route. Basically, these two things you need to mention specifically. Beyond that, it is very essential to mention here in about the FFL, because if Raj Simran, who is an Indian citizen, wants to file a patent application in Europe, or be it a convention application or a PCT, and if it is done beyond the time limit, basically, that is before 6 weeks, in that case, it is very essential to get the foreign filing license, the relevant section number, the relevant fees, as well as the relevant, I would say, the relevant form, fees, all these things you need to specifically mention in the answer sheet here. One more important thing here in that need to be mentioned, because we don't know whether it's they are speaking about a provisional or complete. If you file one application in India and the other one in Europe, what we call in terms of the multiple priorities basically, then you need to ensure that you need to actually ensure that you would be getting those complete application out of it based on the two priorities within 1 year from the first filing or the first provisional filing. That also you need to actually mention here. As I said, the questions are very raw. The questions are very raw. They are not designed by an expert like the patent office as such. So I've got a question here from Siddharth who says, are the fees same or updated since 2014? And what fees to be written if asked, an entity or individual or all of the columns actually? So Siddharth, यहाँ पे in this specific case, Siddharth, they are the individuals, the company name or the details are not provided, so you can write it for the individuals basically. And the fees are updated fees. You can check on the Indian Patent Office website. I have requested this to in last 15 days to everyone. Just throw away all your books. Just throw away all the content that is old. Because if you look at Form 28, most of the books have the format of Form 28, which doesn't include educational institutions. The rules get updated. If you have an old book, old copy of the book, just don't refer to that at this point of time, because rules get updated. The updated things may not be possible to be updated in the book directly, and for sure you won't purchase or buy a new edition of book just for the sake of I would say just for the sake of examination. So if you are appearing for the first time or second time, whatever, right? So yeah, Sushmita mentions appropriate office to file is origin of the invention basically. So Sushmita, automatically this thing is actually covered. There is no specific I would say specific hint given. Simran is an Indian citizen. Where she would file is something that you are speaking about, appropriate office in terms of the Indian patent offices. Since there is no hint, you can just simply mention that the patent can need to be need to be I would say the term appropriate office as such. Jigisha, in case of Ajay, we have to file Form 8 or Form 6. I'm confused. Jigisha, when you're filing patent of edition, that point of time, you would be filing 1, 2, 3, 5, 26. So those forms would be filed. Form 8 or 6 depend upon what activity you actually want to do further with that, with respect to that particular application. And that was, Jigisha, I think, the question for the first situational based question as such. Okay. Now in this case, as I said, you need to mention about the foreign filing license section, the relevant form, the relevant section as such, as well as in case of, so what we call as cognate applications, basically if there are multiple priorities as such, therein you need to mention about the 1 year timeline within which you have to file the complete within 1 year basically. Right, now that's question number 2. Now the next thing, there at times this has happened with students actually, you have simple questions in one specific, I would say one specific sub question basically, or section as such. Therein you try to over attempt basically the number of questions. So if you are asked, in fact I had done this in my exam in 2005. So when they are saying you to attempt 4 out of 6, then you attempt 5 just so that you get extra marks. But remember that, in this case, of course, we don't know whether we would be having the choice here or not, basically, firstly. But second important thing herein is that, if there is a option, don't try to over attempt, because it may kill your chances of attempting all other questions. Because attempting, remember, if you are attempting 100, you can get 50 to 60 marks. If you are attempting 90, then probably you are in the danger zone of 45 to 55, I would say. Because in last exam, when I spoke to a lot of students, basically, they also mentioned that, they got 48, 49 marks. I asked a simple question: how much was attempted? 10, 15 marks was not attempted, actually. So you are in the danger zone, basically, right? And in the Delhi class, again, I had mentioned, if you don't know, still you attempt. If you don't know how to draft the claim, how you are not understanding the invention, and given a format in that you attempt it, that is the most important thing. So don't try to over attempt the number of questions, if at all there is an option, because it may kill your time for the other questions, which would be really crucial in that case. Now, third question, Patlex Business Solution is a startup based in Latur. Patlex is developed in the process of development of hardware for easily accessing patent agent exam training contents. The prototype is ready. However, the final product would need 7 to 8 months to get it developed. The hardware is novel and non-obvious. Patlex wishes to file a patent application for an invention in India and PCT for the same. Patlex approaches you for advice on Indian and PCT filing, advise them on various steps to be followed and various schemes available for startup under Indian Patent Act, basically. First important thing, based on the description that has been provided to us, it speaks about a hardware. Okay, if you think of section 3K, that may not be applicable here, because it's saying it's a hardware as well as it's novel and non-obvious. So for sure we have a patent case here. Second, the product is not ready, or the prototype is ready, however the final product is not ready. So you need to mention here in about the provisional patent filing here instead of a complete patent filing, because you would have your end product ready, because there may be some optimization of the product which need to be actually included, I would say. Those details need to be included, and that's the reason you would have 1 year time from provisional to complete, within which you can actually do that. So that mention of the provisional, see, again, these are raw questions. I have framed these questions, but I think it is very essential that, see, what is important is the thought process that is going on, the way you are trying to attempt. And I think we have covered at least 30 different questions, situational based questions. Each one of you have attempted it in the class, and I think that's where the real comfort should be. Now, the Patlex wishes, so you will file a provisional, and when we think of PCT, it has to be filed within 1 year as such. That you have to mention. Also, remember that. So once you have the data ready, that point of time, along with complete, you can file the PCT. Beyond this, you have to mention about the SIPP scheme, various schemes available for startup under Indian Patent Act. So you can mention here in about the SIPP scheme that is available for the startups. What is also important in case of startups, wherever there is a question of startup, you have to mention about Form 28, as well as the requirement under Form 28, the certificate by DPIIT that you are a registered startup, to prove that you are a startup, basically. That is also something which is very important. The similar question in case of educational institution, Form 28, mandatory to get the fees exemption, or I would say fees reduction. Form 28 need to be filed by the educational institution. Therein you can submit affiliation certificate, affiliation to the university, affiliation to AICT, affiliation to UGC, or affiliation to anything or beyond that. The NAC or NBA accreditation as well works really well in case of providing those certificates or proving that educational status. Basically, that's about your, I would say, the form 28 for the startup, as well as you need to mention about the SIPP scheme here. The next step that I have for, like, time management is the number of pages are irrelevant. Basically, number of pages are irrelevant basically. So if you exactly write the answer, if you know the answer, 4 or 5 lines are sufficient for 4 to 5 marks question, or if it's a 10-mark question, even 7 to 8 lines are sufficient to grab the, I'm not saying you would get 10 out of 10, but grab the maximum marks. If you know the answer, if you know the exact answer, what is being triggered because of the question, in that case, what you can do is you can write that exact answer there. No need to just because it's for 10 marks, it is not necessary that you have to write for 3 pages. Because in fact, I told in Delhi class that you can actually complete your draft in 4 pages. Complete draft basically. Title, the next page would start with the field of the invention, background, summary, objective, summary, drawings, detailed description, example, next page claim, and next page abstract. That is possible. If you know it, if you know the answer, don't overstretch it unnecessarily. Put it in very crisp. I'm telling you, to the point answer. Rather someone who would assess your answer sheet would like to have that to the point answer basically, rather than just a lengthy answer, I would say. Okay, so this is another tip for time management. It is very important again, because if you know the answer, just don't drag it ahead basically. Like, so if you know it, just leave it, answer it and leave it basically, and move on to the next question. Next question, number 4. Mr. Vijay filed a patent application in India on 19th October 2018 and gets it granted on 8th May 2019 without taking any help of a professional patent agent. On 18th April 2022, he realized that the patent is lapsed due to the non-payment of fees. Mr. Vijay wishes to maintain the patent and approaches you to seek advice. Kindly advise him in the course of election along with the relevant section numbers, forms, and fees. This is about, this is about, I would say, the restoration of the lapse patent. There are 3 things important here. First is the deadline for actually the fees payment is, if you look at the deadlines basically, then probably you would understand that after the lapse 18 months. Okay, so when was it lapsed? It was lapsed on 19th October 2020, because first 2 years are free. And thereafter, you have time till 19th April 2022. So you just have 1 day to pay the fees basically. Okay, that needs to be covered here specifically, as well as, of course, would need this. You would mention the specific form, fees, along with the section numbers and the details that are actually required here. So first thing that should be triggered to you is the lapse of the patent. The moment you see the word lapse, it is about the restoration answer. I have a question here from Ankita. How do we draft reply to controller, format, in situation based question when asked in case of FER, etc.? I think that's an interesting question, Ankita. Ankita, what you can do is, just check out any FER reply basically on the Independent Office website. The format that is used to the controller, basically, similarly, what I mentioned about the these kind of questions, same thing you can actually use there. Then Abhinav is asking here, should title, brief description, detailed description, claim, and abstract be individually written in separate sheet for the question which asks to draft complete spec? Abhinav, I think this has been already covered in, like, we have, you can just go through the remaining videos which are there. And like, there is a specific format in which you have to actually write, but definitely not everything is required on the separate pages, Abhinav. Shweta, if we don't know the exact fees and if we write as prescribed in that, can we lose marks for the same? I think again, that's an interesting question, Shweta. Shweta, if you don't know the fees, write prescribed fees. Like, but if you put wrong fees, probably you would be losing out on the marks for sure. Okay, so extra marks you would lose out if you write the wrong fees. But if you write prescribed fees and if you don't know, and like in this question fees is asked, definitely you're not going to get the mark. But if you write wrong fees, it may lead to, I would say, more marks getting deducted, because there may not be any specific answer or specific division of marks into the question. Basically यहाँ पे जैसे चार चीजें पूछी है, there may not be any specific division for fees, forms and section number. But as a human, like, when someone assesses that, if you write something wrong, your marks may be actually, extra marks may be deducted for that. So that would be my answer to you, Shweta. Now, the next step that I have for you is, especially in case of complete spec drafting, I would say, or claim drafting. In that case, prepare the basic format, and I think we have discussed this format again and again in all the classes. The ebook 2 includes the exact format in which you need to write that is already covered. Prepare that basic format and thereafter fill in the blanks basically. Instead of just writing it, approximately have an idea, one paragraph for field of the invention, two paragraphs for the background of the invention, two paragraphs for object, two paragraphs. So you know your limit basically, right? So prepare that broader structure first and then put in the I would say, put in those specific, I would say, paragraphs or the wordings there. I have a question here from Penal. Should we have to attempt questions in series, or we can attempt drafting questions first? Penal, I think there is no specific guideline for this, and you should be in a position to ask, ask. You should be in a position to attempt whichever way you want. Sushmita, do we need to remember amendment of rules year-wise? Sushmita, the answer to this is no. In fact, remembering the rules is very difficult for everyone. Specific rules which are very important that have already been discussed again and again in the classes, and you can just refer to those specific rules as such. Deepika, form 15 will be filed for restoration under section 60. Deepika, just cross check. I'm not here to answer these questions, probably technical questions, because I'm not appearing for the patent agent exam and I don't recollect exactly, but just you can cross check, Deepika, I would say, right? For the restoration under section 60, yeah, whether it's a form 15 or not actually. Okay. Now, again, coming back to Sushmita's question, year-wise rule, no. Generally, rule amendment that happens after the last patent agent exam is asked, not in the exam, but maybe in the viva or in any specific questions. And as far as the questions are concerned or the relevant rules are concerned, I have specifically pointed out certain specific rules which are very important, which can be asked in the exam as well, both in the situational based question as well as section numbers. Those specific rules you can remember, otherwise no need to remember the rule numbers. The next question that I have, Juhi is developing a nutraceutical product to boost immunity, anticipating objections relevant to section 3D, 3E, 3I, 3P. During the patent examination, she approaches you for advice on how can the rejections be avoided. Guide Ms. Juhi on the course of action required to overcome sections 3D, 3I, and 3P during the patent prosecution. Now, I think herein it is like, I think there was one question asked by Ankita, how do we draft reply, like, for controller? This is not controller's question, I would say. This is again to the client, directed to the client again. What is important herein is that you need to mention about 3D, that enhancement of therapeutic efficacy. In case of 3E, the synergy part. 3I and 3P is about the claiming strategy per se, wherein you should not use the specific terminologies under 3I, like, treatment, method of treatment, or the diagnostic, or the use kind of terminology in your claiming. Then you can get it for sure granted. This 3P, traditional knowledge, basically cannot be patented. Here you can specifically mention that the I would say the end dosage form, or the new product, basically modern dosage form, honestly speaking, which is for the old herbs or old products, that can be definitely patented as is. That's the answer to question number 5, which was hypothetical question. Herein again, like, you may be in a position to write a lot about section 3D or 3E or 3I, 3P. Be very precise. Be very precise. What is asked there in the question. 3D people can write an entire essay on 3D, entire 10 pager actually. That is possible. But what is asked? What is the weightage for that question? What are the specific things asked in the question actually? Also, while reading these kind of questions, just divide into different types of sub questions, I would say. Reason being that you need to answer for each of the sub question, because each of the sub question would get some kind of weightage for that, and that's the reason you need to answer for each of the sub question as such. Now, next step. So, like, again, this is when you are drafting, when you are attempting paper to attempting all the questions is important than attempting one with a really long answer and one not attempting. I'll tell you a simple case. I know one question I can answer very, once I know it fully, I can get good marks out of it. But if you look at the probability, basically, probably answering that full question in detail may not still give you the, I would say, the 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 marks. Rather, it is important because, see, this is more like a language paper. You may not get always the full marks out of it, right? So it is very important to know how much to write in the long answer question, basically. Okay, there are no set rules for that. As I said, this is a very gray area or a big area. But as I said, if you know answer for one and second you feel like, no, I don't know at all, I would still recommend like, attempting the other question whichever way possible, whatever triggers you, basically looking at the question, that you try to attempt in the other question, which you feel is really comparatively difficult as such. As I said, the crux herein is that you have to attempt all the questions. Next question, which is for the situational based question. On 20th April 2022, Ritik receives a hearing notice. The hearing is scheduled for 17th May. The objection raised is attention of the applicant is invited towards Section 6 of the Biodiversity Act 2002, which mandates that if biological material obtained from India is used for the application for patent, the permission and other information for making application for patent should be obtained from NBA, and details should be furnished in the application form 1 column 9(3). Kindly advise Ritik on various steps to be taken before appearing for the hearing. There are 4 things required here. First important thing is that for a hearing notice, you have to upfront tell the controller that you are attending that hearing. So you have to file that form 30, basically that you will be attending that hearing, you or I would say anyone else for that sake who will be attending the hearing, firstly. Second thing, it speaks about the NBA. You have to file form 3 of National Biodiversity Act. You get the receipt of filing of that NBA application. That receipt you have to again upload through form 30. And so that would give as well as you have to update the form 1 if it is required, actually, so those details, if at all they are not included in your form 1 answer. Last thing that is important here and to mention, of course you have to attend the hearing, and 15 days, within 15 days you have to submit the written submissions as well. It is very important to let you know that we would be submitting the final agreement, because the approval of NBA is an agreement. Basically, that approval of NBA we would be submitting within due course of time, as and when required. This need to be mentioned in the written submission. Remember, you have to mention that written submissions need to be done within 15 days after the hearing, because the question is very specific. Advise Ritik on steps to be taken before appearing for the hearing, that is from today when he has received the hearing notice, till the grant of the patent. Once you submit that approval, NBA approval, you will be getting the grant certificate for the patent. Tips for time management, coming back again. If possible, make it bullet point wise answer. Like for example, यहाँ पे जैसे हमने 4 चीजें लिखी हैं. Hearing, form 30, attending the hearing, put it as a single pointer or first bullet. Second thing, form 3 of NBA, filing, put it as a second pointer. Submission of the receipt, form 3, so form 30 again, put it as a third pointer. Fourth pointer, attend the hearing. Fifth pointer, written submission within 15 days after hearing. Sixth pointer, I would say that once, so in the written submission you are mentioning that once you have that final NBA approval in place, that need to be submitted again in form 30, and that's the last thing. So if you put it pointer wise now, it would give you lot of mileage out of it, as well as, so that, see, it is very essential that your answers to, in many cases, need not be in the essay format. If they are very crisp, to the point, bang on target, and a bullet point wise, it would be really good answer. Be it you are writing a letter, or be it you are writing a FAR response, basically. Okay, that's how it is accepted, or that's how it is I would say generally expected as well. Question number 7, Mr. Sulesh has filed a patent application which claims 2 separate products in the same invention. During the examination, he receives an objection in the FAR that the claims of the complete spec relate to more than one invention. Advise Suresh on the course of action to be taken to reply to FAR, basically. Should we also need to make bullets? Engineering student 1. Okay, you can make it as a dash hyphen, basically, in the answer sheet, that, or you can put it 1, 2, 3, 4 numbering wise as well. Okay. To answer this question now, the moment we see 2 separate products, you need to mention about the divisional, basically. So there is a request under section 16 that the controller has the power to divide the inventions, basically, as such. So you can very much write about the, you can also write about the options that you have, basically, or how would you file the form for the divisional application, basically. As well as you need to mention that the expiry, yes, Sunita, that is for the divisional applications, basically. That is for the expiry of the divisional would be the expiry of the main invention as such. In case of divisional, you also need to mention specifically, which is not the case for patent interpretation. Divisional के केस में you cannot change the specification. You have to use the same specification with the same priority, basically. In case of patent in case of patent of edition, you may add some data wherever required as such. So, herein what you need to mention is about the divisional or everything related to divisional form 1, 2, 3, 5 forms that are required actually at the time of filing of the divisional application answer. In the divisional application, when you file form 1, you need to mention specifically the priority application number. That is also significant here. I have a question here from Sucharita Saha. May we get the question hard copy? Sucharita, sorry, I didn't get the get your question. Are you speaking about these questions basically, or in the exam hall? So just specify, and I'll try to I'll try to answer it. Simi, we need to pay renewal fees for the divisional application. Absolutely fine. Simi, that need to be done basically. That's in terms of the differences, Simi. But here in the question is about the course of action to reply to FER basically. Herein you can mention about the divisional applications and the requirements related to that as such. Okay, that's question number 7 as such. Next tip that I have, and I think that's the last step, but I have some snapshot of how to divide your time for every question as such in the Sucharita, yeah, absolutely, you would be getting the questions hard copy, no? Yes, at the exam also. It's a print copy basically. Yeah. Remember, it's about the quality and not about the volume in terms of the answers to in question paper 2 or paper 2 basically. If you feel its volume, and wherever possible, ensure also that your handwriting is actually I would say readable. I am pretty confident there are a lot of students from Delhi who joined for my physical class over the weekend. Students, I didn't say there in front of everyone, but आप में से कुछ लोगों का handwriting बहुत खराब था. Try to I would say put it in a at least a readable format basically, because I had actually seen your notebooks. I didn't want to mention there specifically, but thoda sa you take care of it actually. Volume is not required again in paper 2. You can be very crisp, still you can get the marks, good marks, I would say, in that. And I have a question here again from Sushmita. How much time we need to spend on patent drafting? Sushmita, this is a very vague question, because as I said, if your draft is from your domain, you would require very less time for that actually, right? You have to manage balance. But then I have ideally got, I would say, for 2018 question paper, I have got something in the last slide that I'll be discussing, Sushmita, which I was anticipating this question. I have already included it, Sushmita. Just give it 2 or 3 more minutes and you would get the answer for that, how much time need to be spent actually. But before that, the last question that I have, I think, no, there is one more question. Jaya filed an opposition for a patent filed by Rekha. Based on the opposition, the Ms. Rekha notifies the controller that he desires to withdraw the patent. She desires to withdraw the patent. Can Ms. Rekha withdraw the patent? Yes. Write down the relevant forms, fees, and section numbers. Also, Mr. Amitabh asked Jaya to check if the cost incurred during the opposition can be recovered or not. Provide the relevant statute to support if Ms. Jaya can get the determination of cost under any condition. This question is about the specific rule that I had mentioned again and again about the determination of cost actually, which is important. And if you know that rule, if you know the schedule as well, then this question can be answered very easily answered. But the general answer is yes, Rekha can withdraw the patent. You can provide the relevant form, fees, and section numbers accordingly as well. So that's question number 8. I think we still have one more question, but before that, I'm not recommending anything. These are general suggestions basically. with respect to the time chart that I am providing here. You can actually take your time based on your comfort, or based on, I would say, based on your level of understanding of the all the questions as well as the details, I would say. But to summarize, actually, what I have done, as I said, let me share my screen once again. Yeah. So these were the questions in 2018. 2018 question paper is in front of me right now. There are four questions of 5 marks, which gives you 20 marks. Then there are three questions of 10 marks, which gives you 30 marks. Then you have one question on title abstract, at least two claims. Therein you have 20 marks. And lastly, you have a full spec for 30 marks actually now. So you have four types of questions, and for that, I have actually got, I would say, different time that you can use based on my understanding, I would say, and we will cover that. But before that, Apurva, how to deal with this situation? Is it necessary to incorporate everything from the question in the draft? Yes, absolutely, Apurva. How are you going to answer it if you can't incorporate the situation or the question that is asked actually, like, in the draft or the question basically? You need to incorporate the things, and accordingly you need to give the answer basically. Anuradha, should we write form numbers or drawing of format if any question related to form? Very interesting, Anuradha. आपको सिर्फ फॉर्म नंबर लिखना है, अनुराधा. आपको पूरा फॉर्म ड्रॉ नहीं करना है. Is that clear, Anuradha? For drawing that entire form is not feasible for every form, basically. Okay? So, wherever it is mentioned, you need to ensure that you are writing the form numbers, basically. Coming back to the, I think yeah. Now I have got this on an average 4 to 5 marks. See, again, this is not a standard. This is not a standard, basically. Students, I'll share this slide in the WhatsApp group as well that we have. 4 to 5 marks minimum per question. I would say put 8 to 10 minutes. Number of questions are 4. 30 minutes works really well. 10 marks question, time limit should be 20 minutes at the max per question. I'm just saying on an average, basically. So you would get, like, of course, some questions would be solved very easily, as well as some questions you may not be in a position to solve completely. 50 to 60 marks, that makes real sense. 20 mark question, this is for 2018 question paper. Format may be a bit different, I would say, so 20 marks, one question, 30 to 40 minutes, and 30 marks, one question, which is complete like 45 to 60 minutes. Keep last 10 minutes for review, if at all, if you have missed out on anything. Again, now, how does this actually work in the exam? So if you look at the first part, it is 165 minutes, the least one. And you have 180 minutes in your hand. The maximum requires 215 minutes, basically. I would say wherever you are, you know it, basically. In that case, try to be very crisp, try to save on the time as well there, right? Drafting part, very essential. Put some extra efforts in that. Use some quick techniques, I would say. See, if you can't like I would say, highlight on the question paper, put it in your answer sheet as a rough paper, but do it line number, it is very essential, I'm telling you again and again, to manage the time in the paper 2. If you can't manage the time effectively in the paper 2, you would not be in the position to attempt all the questions. I think there was one tip which was given in the Delhi physical class. I'll repeat it in WhatsApp group after a few minutes, actually. So it is very, very essential, that aapka jo, because remember, aapko 9 questions attempt karne hai total. In 2018, you had 9 questions to be attempted. Okay. If you miss out on 5 mark question, like if you are not in a position to answer, that is absolutely, I would say, okay at all. But if you are missing out on something, just you are dragging because you know the answer on 4 or 5 marks question, and if you miss out on the major part, 30, 20, or 10 mark question, I think that's a wrong strategy. Basically, put your more efforts. So I'll tell you what, in networking, this we always say, actually, like आपके पास बहुत अच्छा नेटवर्क है, आपके पास बहुत अच्छे कनेक्ट्स हैं, it is very essential, it is really very essential that use your network at the appropriate time only. दैट मीन्स हर कोई कनेक्ट को आपको हर जगह यूज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. सिमिलरली, गिव द वेटेज टू द क्वेश्चन. 30 मार्क्स का है, 20 मार्क्स का है, 4 और 5 मार्क्स का है. If at all you miss out on 4 mark question, absolutely fine. But if you miss out on anything 20 or 30, probably you are already in the danger zone as such. Usha, we need to use only one color pen or two color for highlighting purpose. Usha, मैंने ये बोला है, again I'll repeat this. Use pencil and then erase it, if at all, if you are doing it on the question paper as such. If at all you are doing, if it is not allowed in the exam, don't do it at all. You can do it on the rough paper on the answer sheet as such. Okay, that's my suggestion. Put 5 minutes extra, last 5 minutes at least for the review. It is very essential. Don't review the answers, but just review or see if you have attempted everything. When I say attempted everything, I think Apurva mentioned in one of these things that it's a two-part question. Have you attempted all the parts of the question? If there are 4 subparts, have you attempted all those subparts? That you cross check, because if you have missed out on one, probably, that although you knew the answer, you would have you would have lost that precious marks as well. See, every mark in paper 2 gets counted as such. It is very important that every mark is you're doing a justice to that answer. And the last but not the least, I would say, for this 2022 patent examination from my end is this question, answer to this question. Ranbir has filed a patent application for agrochemical composition. Alia is an activist working for the rights of farmers. She files a pre-grant opposition to the patent application. However, the patent application gets granted. Alia wants to file a post-grant opposition. She approaches you for an advice whether she can file a post-grant opposition, even if she was involved in the pre-grant opposition as such. Provide advice in this regard, various steps into the post-grant opposition. Herein, the answer you have to write when you are writing. Anyone who files a pre-grant opposition is any person can file the pre-grant opposition. Post-grant opposition need to be filed by a person interested. A person interested term is, I would say, very, significant herein when you mentioned about the post-grant opposition. Since Alia is an activist working for the rights of farmer, that statement gives you some hint that she may be a person interested in that case, and she can actually file the post-grant opposition as well. Now, you have to mention the form, you have to mention the, I would say, the fees, the relevant section number 25(2), as well as the process. You also need to mention Alia that, Alia, the post-grant opposition happens at the Indian Patent Office, that's such. Miss Alia also she wants to file a revocation. Can she do that? Yes, she can do that. Although she has filed a pre-grant and post-grant opposition. Herein as well, you need to mention that the forms required at the for the revocation, basically, because there is a specific form and 10,000 rupees fees actually that is required for the revocation of the patent application at the Delhi High Court access. That specifically you also need to mention here. So that's what I have for all of you. I really wish each one of you all the best for your exams. I just want to conclude on, I would say, a simple note here. See, students, we have been working together since last 4 or 5 months together. It's been a real journey, I would say, of, even for me, it was a lifetime of my journey. Actually, I learned a lot with all of you. Actually, like, those who were part of the classes, those who actually, like, made contributions to my learnings as well. And so we have given our best as such. There are just 4 or 5 days left. Give your best. I would say there are just 3 days left, rather 3 or 4 days left. Give your best. Don't just give up. I'm available for a call, actually, if you want. If you are like, because in last 2 3 days I'm getting panic calls from the students. Don't get worried. The way we have prepared it, I'm telling you, if like, so last time 2018 May, we had like 25% of the students who have cracked the exam. I have this confidence, actually, that the way we have prepared, be it paper one or paper two, situational based question, patent drafting, anything for that sake, we conducted all these mock tests. We had so many, I would say, debates that happened during the classes. If 5% result is also there for this time at the patent agent exam, I have pretty much confidence that most of you are going to crack that examination, because it's just not about your preparation. It's all together collaborative efforts that we did in since December as such. And that's my like, confidence in all of you. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'm available for any call or any query as such till Sunday morning, I would say. All the best. Give your best. Remember that this is just one another exam. It's very important we know each one of us. But also remember that हम लोग जिस स्टेज पे पहुंचे हैं ना, यहाँ तक आते आते बहुत टाइम लगेगा. Don't give up. We still have a long, I would say, way to go as far as the exam preparation is concerned. Take care of your health. Have good food, as well as have proper sleep just before going for the exam. All the best. See ya for the preparation of the Viva.